morning, everyone. Welcome. And we are celebrating, but I think that more than celebrating, I think we can go over some of the highlights of these 20 years and see how the next 10 years can look like, looking at some of the trends that are affecting or affected by open source during the last few years. So of course open source was born after free software. The reality is that it was born based on free software. We all know the issue that free as in English, because you have the free as in freedom and free as in beer. That is terrible in terms of marketing, because you always have the issue of explaining which free you are talking about. And so what happened is that Richard Stallman created free software, developed the concept of free software. It was a mixture of technology and ethics and freedom and many things, which we all absolutely share and respect. Unfortunately, was not good for marketing, was not good for to make free software, to have free software in enterprises. Enterprises have their own buzzwords, they have their own agenda, they have their own vocabulary, and free is not the right word for the corporations. So Bruce Perens, together with a bunch of other people, met in early 1998 in Silicon Valley, and based on the four main freedom: use, study, improve, share, and on a number of other rules that have been inserted, distilled in the open source definition. They are 10 different rules. Created the concept of open source. And according to what he has recently written, open source was a kind of marketing campaign for free software. Was not anything different. Unfortunately, there has been misunderstanding, and I think we all should avoid these misunderstandings because the division between free software and open source, I'm still asked why you are a director of open source. That means that you are not for free software, which I think is just an idiot question. We are all for free software, we are for open source software. Open source is a precondition of free software. If you don't have the code on an open source, you cannot basically have free software. So we have to overcome any kind of division. We have to work together to make free and open source, or whatever you call it, but we know the principles. A success not only amongst developers, where is definitely a success, and the recent move of Microsoft from Linux as a cancer to we love Linux is just based on the fact that developers definitely prefer Linux to other platforms for development, and therefore to get developers you have to be in the open source environment, because most of the most dynamic, most smarter developers are using Linux and are not using the, I would say, the operating system of the last decade, which is Windows. By the way, he was telling me, I don't know when he codes, I never code, I don't write a single character of code. But I'm a Linux, although I'm 63, and I got my degree in literature, believe it or not, in 1978. I'm a Linux user, and when people ask me, oh, so you're old and not a technical guy and you can use Linux, and I said, you just need a neuron connected to your hands to use Linux. So if you don't use Linux, it's your problem, it's not my problem. is more secure, it's smarter, it's configurable, I can do it whatever I want, I can use it and interoperate with other people without any issue. So let's have a very fast look at what open source has been during the first 2 decades. So the first one, of course the first one was the decade of advocacy. It was the decade where people were looking at open source software in a skeptical, and free software of course, in a skeptical way. They were asking, and I actually entered the open source environment during that decade, more or less. I've been involved in open source for the last 15 years, so most of the last 2 decades. The open source initiative started based on the fact that the open source definition was a reference for open source licenses. And therefore it was easier having, because if you think the 4 freedoms are something that you understand once you have started, especially for the non-technical people. I can tell you what happened to me when I discovered OpenOffice. That was my entry point in a free software environment. I started using OpenOffice, and then I understood what the 4 freedoms were after having started to use the software. This is the typical path of a non-technical guy. The open source definition is a lot easier to understand for non-technical people, because the 4 freedoms are mostly ethical, and of course ethics is extremely important. But when you think about business, let's say that there are a few companies around that do business that are not totally ethical, but they might use open source as well. So OSI has been the steward of licenses, has approved a large number of licenses during the first 10 years, also during the second 10 years. The idea is not to do the same over the next 10 years. There are enough open source licenses for everyone. You have all the flavors if you want copyleft, from strong to weak. You have all the flavors if you want permissive, from BSD to Apache or whatever. So let's focus on some of these licenses, make them mainstream, and have the consensus of companies on using licenses. Yesterday we have seen a guy from Daimler, that of course is more known with the brand name of Mercedes, and the reality that the software that they embed on their cars is Linux, which is an example that I usually make when I'm speaking at conferences. I say, when you press the brake pedal on your machine, do you still think that it actions a pump or something like it was in the past? And people say, of course. And I say, no. It sends a command to Linux, and because it's Linux, you can be sure that the wheel will stop. If it was Windows, okay, let's talk about the wall when you have crashed in. And people say, but why this? And I say, because that is solid and the other one is a joke. It's a joke used by billions of people, but it's a joke anyway. So the first decade there was some controversy, as you can see. The SCO battle with IBM, the Halloween documents by Microsoft, and although I'm looking with a lot of interest to what Microsoft is doing, we cannot, I personally probably it's because I'm Italian, I'm old, I'm a marketing man, so a marketing man is a little bit bastard inside. So I will never forget that those documents were published, because that is a significant communication in general, and it's not enough a single "we love Linux" to overcome that kind of communication that lasted for 10 years. Then let's talk about it, and let's understand how Microsoft can become a good open source community member. We are for freedom, of course, and therefore we must be coherent with our ideas, so everyone is free to become a good community member, but that is not the right way to start being a community member. So the first decade was crystallization of consensus around the licenses, and multilateral versus unilateral, it's a little bit obscure, might be a little bit obscure, but if you think that open source licenses are multilateral, open source licenses are the effect of consensus, while proprietary licenses are unilateral. So it's the consensus of a single company. And of course, open source licenses created safe spaces for developers, because if you use an open source license, you stick on open source license, you have a community and you start to have an ecosystem behind you. You have organizations like Free Software Foundation, OSI, that are at least driving the idea and trying to make the idea more popular. You have other organizations like Software Freedom Conservancy. You have organizations like Open Invention Network that is working on the side of patents on open source software. So we start to have an ecosystem that all together make it possible the development, and not just the development, but the growth of open source. So Eben Moglen, who is a very well-known open source advocate and lawyer, says that licenses are a constitution for communities. And if we think this is a very nice definition, because being one of the founders of the LibreOffice project, I can tell you we decided to use, we inherited LGPL and we decided to move to MPL, and that was based on consensus, and MPL today is really the constitution of our community. We strongly feel that MPL is protecting us and is allowing LibreOffice to flourish. So open source license, we can say that open source licenses are the multilateral consensus of permissions and norms for a community. And I really like this definition. Second decade, 2008, 2018, where we are now, broad enterprise adoption. Of course, when you become more popular, then you have software patents to come and GPL enforcement in some cases. So this is the decade where Microsoft went from Linux is a cancer to we love Linux. Open source is the de facto market share leader on servers. We can look at different deployment of open source software, but it's rather clear that on the cloud, open source software is the absolute leader. And there are also other areas where open source in a different flavors is the leader. We can say that for mobiles. Of course, iPhones and Macintosh are close products, but the reality is that the base of the software, the roots of that software are on open source in any case. Talking about new ventures and new companies and new developments, there is open source in most of the new software that is being developed. Even if you use proprietary software like Dropbox, for instance, you will see somewhere based on open source software. So, and that is what makes me happy, because if I see that it's based on open source software, I trust it more than if it was based on proprietary software. I'm not a developer, I cannot look into the code, but I know that there is someone doing that for me and helping to clean the code and make the code better because the code is open source. So the real value of open source is that you can innovate without needing to be the first. You can start where the others have stopped. And again, it's not, of course I'm making many examples related to LibreOffice because I've lived the project for the last years, but LibreOffice started where OpenOffice stopped. So today LibreOffice is several years ahead in terms of development, and the reason of this is that LibreOffice is an independent community-backed product, while OpenOffice, companies wanted to make OpenOffice a non-independent, corporate-backed open source product. We should never forget that the situation of OpenOffice today is thanks to IBM Oracle. If the product is stuck nowhere, it's because IBM and Oracle wanted to back it at first, and they abandoned the product because there was no interest when they understood that the community was on the LibreOffice side. You stay in control of your own resources. You can influence the global ecosystem, and this is the power of open source. We all together can build a better ecosystem for open source software. But of course, we have to be all together. And sometimes, as I don't have I don't have a technical background, so for instance, the first time that I discovered Linux, I'm very curious. So the first time that I tried to install Linux was in 2002. I bought a Red Hat distribution. At the time was kind of 15 floppy disks. I installed it, and at the end when I relaunched the computer, the screen was black. So I called my friend that suggested me to install Red Hat and said, "What's now?" And he said, "Oh, you have to open the terminal." And I said, "No way. My religion does not me allow to use the terminal. So my religion does not allow me to use Outlook and the terminal." And partially KDE. But KDE, I think, is a problem of myself as well, because I cannot get the philosophy behind KDE. I'm on KDE advisory board, so this is hilarious, I know. But I try to install KDE every now and then after a couple of days say, no way, I cannot use it. But definitely my religion does not allow me to use Outlook and the terminal. And actually, the reason why I am involved in open source is the existence of Outlook. Outlook is the worst software ever developed by a quadruman. I don't say animal because I would offend more genders. So quadrumans are only humans and monkeys. So I just offend humans and monkeys. But just conceiving Outlook is a sin by itself. And if you think that all the advantages of open source are derived from software freedom. And new technologies are possible only with open source. Talking again about Mercedes, the fact that they are able to have a car that is software driven is because they can embed an operating system into a car and have the operating system manage the car. Something similar is for networks today. You have software-defined networks, and most software-defined networks are based on open source software. Then maybe you have someone that, because of the license, makes a proprietary version of the operating system. But the reality is that the proprietary version of several network operating systems were based originally on open source software. So let's see what can or might happen in the future. Open source next 10 years. We say assimilation and authenticity. Let's talk about assimilation. So OSI as a membership or an affiliate program, if you look at the logos there, it's kind of the who's who of open source. If you are representing a not-for-profit, a community, an open source organization, and you're not affiliate to OSI, I strongly advise you to join, because together we can really improve the ecosystem. When I talk as a OSI representative, I'm backed by all these projects. And this gives me strength when I discuss with people, because I'm representing operating system, I'm representing communities, projects, I'm representing softwares, I'm representing the best of the open source and the best of free software, of course. So that is extremely important. You are really invited to join. It's very easy. There is a module on the website. You just fill in, you will deal with Patrick Masson, our executive director. And the first meeting after Patrick has done the due diligence, you will be approved by the board, and we will start doing things together. For instance, we have a few African organizations, and I'm proud to say that in some African communities, open source is making a dent, thanks also to the combined effort of several OSI affiliates. So what is going to happen in the next 10 years? We'll change community styles. I think that we have to understand that we have to overcome the community boundaries and work more together, different communities. Instead of starting to discuss, recently at a meeting I've seen a representative of Ubuntu, OpenSUSE and Fedora starting to discuss about the bits and bytes in their distribution. I think that they were losing their time. They should talk on how together they can address more enterprises, more companies to have them deploy open source software. So we, looking at the community styles, you see, we went from the enthusiasts and advocates to professionals. In terms of single project companies, we went from really closed, and it was probably necessary at first to concentrate internally, but in the future we will have to work together. License consolidation. Don't count on OSI to approve many more licenses. we will probably start reducing them because there are too many. And we also have rediscovered software freedom. At first, open source was seen as a kind of amoral methodology. You were against the private property. Today, everyone understands that open source means sharing knowledge. And therefore, sharing knowledge is the only way forward for humanity, and this is the way forward for software. And so OSI is trying to, after having crystallized consensus on the licenses, and then against licenses, because during the second decade we have rejected more licenses than we have accepted. In the future, we would like to work more on communities and working together, working beyond the licenses to make a real business ecosystem around free and open source software. I would say we have another 10 years. I can tell you that I will probably be there. I'm 63, so I said officially that I will retire when I will be 76, so I will be there for the next 10 years, if you accept me, of course. But the only way we can do that is together. So join OSI. I'm at the same time an individual member and the representative of two affiliate programs, which are the Document Foundation and the local Italian association, Associazione Libri Italia. We need the effort of everyone. We don't have as many affiliate organizations in Asia as we would like to have. And happy birthday.